How's it going, YouTube? Today I want to show you how to make a really simple stew, and the broth of the stew is going to be a heavy beer based stew. It's really simple. With just a few simple ingredients, we're going to make a wonderful stew that you're going to enjoy and hopefully make on your own. The ingredients you're going to need is a full thing of celery, 4 medium to large regular potatoes, russet potatoes, 3 carrots, a whole white onion. I got some green onions, 1 can of French onion soup. Today I'm using a chuck round steak. Now you can use all sorts of different cuts of meat for this. Oftentimes I just find the most inexpensive cut of meat. I'm going to cook this for so long. It's going to cook for anywhere from about 5 to 8 hours until it just completely just falls apart. Every piece of meat is going to give you a little bit different of a flavor based on the cut and the type of fat marbling that it has in it. So experiment with it. Just have fun. Find the cut that really works for you. Got some garlic, a little bit of oil, and a little bit of flour that I'm going to put this on the meat right before I braise it in the pan. And what that's going to do is that's just going to help to thicken up the stew just a little bit to give it just a really nice thick broth when you're eating it. It's going to be wonderful. Honestly, this is so simple that basically you just chop up the ingredients and over time you add it in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil in the pan, or actually I'm not even using olive oil, I'm just using canola oil, just regular old vegetable oil, canola oil. You could use olive oil, it's a little bit more expensive, but today I'm using vegetable oil. So let's get this started. Okay, so first just turn the pan on, or pot rather, and you really want to, the whole thing about this is it's low and slow. Really low heat, even when you're braising it, you know. Don't feel like you need to be in a rush. This is a meal that you can make. It's all in the setup, because basically once you've started to make it, it's more or less not much to do after that. It just cooks itself. And I cook this on very low heat the entire time, which is why it takes, 5 hours or so. So as it's heating up, take my piece of meat, put it on a plate. Today I'm going to season it pretty simple. There's so many flavors in this, you don't really need to over season your meat. I find that really with this part is pretty much less is more. I mean, I've got the French onion soup and green onions and the white onion and the chicken bouillon. There's so much flavor in this dish, you don't really need to overdo it with the meat. I will say this, I like to actually add a little curry powder because it adds a touch of sweetness to it. Leave your friends wondering like, oh, what is that flavor? I don't know, I think it tastes so good. So just a little bit on each side. Not too much. Just want to make sure that you fully coat the bottom of the pan with the oil so it doesn't burn or stick. Again, we're doing this on very low heat. Put the meat into a little bit of flour. And again, this is not a part that you necessarily have to do. Honestly, this was told to me, this is a trick that was told to me by an Irish friend of mine, named Emmett, who's an amazing chef, to try this out. And I'd really never done this before, but it seemed to make sense to me. So we're going to try it out. Try a fun experiment today. So this one is from Emmett. Shreds of beef and flour. Alright, throw it in the pan. Turn it up just a little bit. Still on lower heat. And basically this is going to cook like this for, you know, probably 5 or 6 minutes. Basically you're just trying to get it a nice brown, golden brown color all over it. And that's going to really, really, really give you a nice base for the stew that you're about to make. It's going to give, it's going to allow all the flavors of the broth to just really come together. And it's a great way to start off the stew. So I'll come back in about 5 minutes and show you what that looks like. Alright, the piece of meat's been cooking for about, honestly, probably not even 5 minutes. It's probably been about 4, maybe 5 minutes. So what I'm going to do now, first, add 2 cups of water. And I'm going to add my chicken bouillon. That's about 3 cubes worth of bouillon. Stir it up, make sure it gets all broken up. A can of French onion soup. And then I've got a whole big bottle of dark beer. Any dark beer of your liking. Poured it in a cup. And this has been sitting out actually for about an hour to make it go flat, because I think that it just makes the flavor of the soup better when the beer is flat. Doesn't need any carbonation since you know you're cooking it all out. Pour that into it. Probably going to need to add about 4 more cups of water. Maybe even a little bit more. To me, cooking is all about having fun. I love sharing my recipes on YouTube, but honestly, I don't make everything the same way every single time. I experiment, I have fun with it. It keeps things interesting for me. I'm always trying to change it up. Now I'm not going to fill it up all the way because I still have to add my celery and my carrots and my onions. And my garlic. Let's see. So that's pretty much it. That's your base. You can put a lid on it. Turn it down. I cook this on really low because it's going to start to slowly bubble. You don't really want it to boil. It's more or less you want it to simmer. Really low heat. Show you how I chop up the vegetables, which is so simple. Okay, as far as chopping up the vegetables goes, it's as simple as can be. Now, I myself like to leave the skin on the potatoes and the carrots. Some people like to peel it off. That's totally cool. I think a lot of the vitamins and nutrients are in the skin. That's what they say. And I like the way it tastes. So, to me, I just leave it on. It's up to you if you want to take it off. The one thing about leaving the skin on a potato is you want to check to see if there's any bad parts, like this part's a little bad here. So I'm just going to cut that off. Throw it away. And let's see. Now, potatoes you can put in first. Celery and carrots I like to put in probably about an hour and a half before the stew is done because celery to me gets a little soggy if you overcook it. So again, about an hour to an hour and a half before the stew is done, you just throw them in. If you like them softer, of course you can put it in whenever you want. Again, it's just about having fun and trying different ways. So cut the potatoes in half. I'm just basically cutting them up into a little bit, maybe more than bite-sized pieces. They are going to fall apart because they're going to cook for so long. You know, and I don't use any fancy cutlery. Not that there's anything wrong with that stuff, but to be honest, I like to get all my cooking utensils from places like the Salvation Army, any thrift stores, because the cooking utensils that were made, you know, 30, 40, 50 years ago are so much better than the stuff that's made today, and it's at a fraction of the cost. My girlfriend got me the other day a ice cream maker, which actually the stew that I'm making tonight is for a potluck that I'm having, and we decided to make some orange sorbet, which eventually I'll probably have a video for that as well as different ice creams that I'm making, and that's an incredibly easy recipe. It's all about having fun and just enjoying your time in the kitchen. So the potatoes are, you know, bite size, maybe a little bit more than bite size, probably 2 bites for most people, and they're about that size. And I put the potatoes in right away. Last one. Sometimes I'll make this stew and I won't even add any beer. But today I felt like make it a little bit richer, more depth to the flavor. Sometimes I've added even like a sweeter beer, like a Newcastle. That'll change it up just a little bit. Again, always just trying to experiment and have a good time. This is one of those recipes that it's all in the prep. You know, I'm making this so much longer before anybody's going to come over, and by the time they get to your house, it's just the aromas of the food just smell so wonderful, and your friends will be walking through the door with a big smile on their face, just, you know, ready to eat. I get so much joy out of cooking. For me, it's just it's what I love to do. It's my passion. Which is why I'm always just changing things up. I hope you guys enjoy these videos because I really do enjoy making them. Got a lot more to come, a lot of different ideas, and always having fun. If you're not having fun, stressing out too much, because this is not supposed to be stressful. It's just nothing but a good time. Oh, piece of a bad potato. Got my green onions. Gonna bunch them up. That makes it really easy to cut. About a handful. This is a larger white onion, or yellow onion actually. Sometimes I use white onions. Sometimes I even use red onions. Today I picked a yellow one. First I'm going to cut it in half, and then lengthwise. Don't worry about breaking these up too much. Try and break them up a little bit. This is going to cook so long, they're all going to fall apart off of each other anyway. and slow is the key to this. Low and slow. It's all in the prep. Honestly, I'm almost done making this. It takes probably about 15 minutes for the whole thing, maybe 20. And then of course it's just sitting around and waiting for all the wonderful flavors to marry with each other. A little bit of garlic. Ooh, that onion got to me. Oh man, that's me bad. That's all right. Okay. Ooh. Smells delicious, burning my eyes. Smash, give it a little bit of a smash. Remember to always watch your fingers. Last thing you want to do is cut yourself. Never look away while handling a knife. I made that mistake when I was 18 on a meat slicer and almost sliced my knuckle off. Fortunately, I had a brilliant hand surgeon who put it back on. That much garlic goes in the pot. Wooden spoon. A nice stir. I'm going to chop these carrots and celery up just so you can see, but for this, that's for the sake of the video. Normally I wouldn't chop them up till they were going to go in, although I don't really think it's going to make too much of a difference, but it's really, really, really simple. Just smaller, bite-sized pieces. Gets down to the bigger part, you probably want to cut them individually. Always being safe. As far as the celery goes, I like to cut it off right before the leaf. Basically, if there's still a little bit, that's totally fine. Put the lid back on. Check to see where it's at. Very low heat. And there you have it. said, don't add me personally, I don't add the celery and the carrots till there's about an hour to an hour and a half left. Voila, that's the entire process. Alright, so my stew has been cooking for about 4 hours, and I just added the celery and the carrots, and I want it to be a little bit thicker, so I thought I would show you guys how you can thicken it up with a real simple way of making what's known as a roux. This is a process that I find that a lot of people struggle with, but if you go slow about it, it's actually really not a difficult process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this small pot on over here, up to the side, and I'm going to turn it on just over lower heat. And I'm going to take half a stick of margarine or butter, in this case it's margarine, and throw that in there. You want to heat this up fairly slowly because you don't want it to burn, which is why I'm doing it on lower heat. Medium to low heat works best while cooking most things. And that's not always the case, otherwise they wouldn't have a high option. But it really does satisfy for most things. Medium to low heat. So, I'm just going to melt this down. Really, basically what you're just going to try and do is create this into a liquid with no chunks in it whatsoever. You'll see. It's not difficult. Melting the margarine down. The reason I have to add so much, half a stick with just over, it's about 3/4 of a cup of flour. I mean, this is a big pot of stew. If it was a small pot, obviously you could make less. And if this doesn't suffice how thick it is, I'll simply just add more and make another one. Less is more on this, that's for sure, because I don't want it to be too thick. Okay, so now that I have it melted completely all the way down, I'm just going to add a little bit of flour slowly, stirring it. You want to make sure to make it all golden in color, as if the margarine and the flour are completely mixed with each other. Well, that should suffice. Looks like I didn't even use the entire half of a cup, so it's probably just under about 1/4 of a cup, actually. So you can really turn that off. And instead of adding that directly into the stew, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this broth and add it to the roux. I got nice and thick again. I'm basically going to keep doing this until it's an actual liquid. So that when I add it to the broth, it's already in liquid form and it's not going to clump anything up. And this is, I think, the step that a lot of people either skip or make a mistake on. And I'm also going to add this very slowly to the stew, because you only need to add as much as you need, you know. But again, it might not be enough, or it might be too much. Just one more should be perfect. It's alright if the celery gets into it, because it's just going to go back into the pot anyway. Basically, the consistency I'm looking for is, if I take my whisk out and not much sticks to it, you know you're good. So now, take this, just pour it in, pour about a quarter of it in. And stir it up. And that's how you make a roux. I'm probably not going to add all of that to this. I'm going to put the lid back on, add a little bit more, and I'm going to put the lid back on and see how much it thickens up over time, because this still has another hour plus to cook. Used about probably 3/4 of it. It's got at least another hour to cook so that the meat falls more apart than it already is. It's not quite shredding. Almost. It should be nice and thick. I hope that helped you out learning how to make a roux. Alright guys, so my stew's been cooking for about 6 hours now, and at this point you can tell it's done when you've got one big piece of beef that is now little tiny pieces of beef all over. The roux made it just a little bit thicker, and that's pretty much it. It took me about 6.5 hours to cook this today. Hope my video was informative and helpful, and I really appreciate you guys checking out my YouTube channel. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.